Hey there, I'm Eliza with Ancestral Evolution, and today we have some more fermentation games to play. We're talking about natto. So natto is a fermented soybean, and it's a traditional Japanese food. For my fellow microbiology nerds out there, they are fermented with Bacillus subtilis. So this is a species of bacteria. The reason that people have been talking so much about natto lately is that it is super high in vitamin K2, which is a nutrient which helps your body take calcium both from your bloodstream and other places in your body and put it in your bones where it belongs. Having higher K2 levels has been associated with lower risk of cardiovascular disease as well as better bone health. However, a lot of people are trying to avoid soy for a couple of reasons. First is a lot of soy, at least grown in the US, is GMO, and a lot of it is sprayed with glyphosate chemicals. So it can be tricky to find organic, non-GMO soybeans. Other people are avoiding soy because of the phytoestrogens in soy. So today we are going to be making some natto, not with soybeans, but instead with chickpeas. If you buy natto commercially, it usually comes in the freezer section of an Asian grocery store, and it comes in these styrofoam containers. And here's your natto. It usually comes with a little kind of seasoning packet and some mustard. I usually don't use the seasoning packet just because it tends to have MSG and other things in it that I don't really want to eat. And then it's covered with this little plastic covering. Here you can see these are the fermented soybeans. Kind of mix them up a little bit. You can see the strands. As I said, this looks kind of slimier and weirder than it actually is. I think they're actually pretty tasty. Now traditionally this is eaten with rice, but because we don't do many carbs, we don't eat this with rice. We just typically eat it on its own. Usually I'll add a little bit of some soy sauce in here. And a little bit of sriracha. If you have some green onions, those are great too. But you can kind of see what this looks like. So first we're gonna soak our chickpeas. So I've got a cup of dried chickpeas here. Just gonna add them in. And I'm gonna cover them with some warm filtered water here. You want plenty of water because these are gonna get much larger than they already are. Then I'm gonna add just a couple tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. And I'm also gonna add some salt. And the apple cider vinegar and the salt help dry out the phytates and some of the lectins that are in the chickpeas. So that can, soaking them in some kind of acid, lemon juice, apple cider vinegar, or even you can use whey for this as well. So I'm just gonna let it sit on my counter covered for about 24 hours. All right, so our chickpeas have been soaking for about 24 hours with a little bit of vinegar and a little bit of salt. And as you can see, they are much larger now. I'm just gonna drain this water out of here and rinse them with some clean water, and then we're gonna put them in a pot and boil them. One other thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick through, and if there are any of these beans that look not so good or look like they're a little bit bad, I'm gonna take them out of here because I don't want them going into my fermentation. All right, the rest of these guys look pretty good. I do not have a pressure cooker or an Instapot, so I'm gonna be doing this old school by simmering and boiling my beans to cook them. If you have a pressure cooker or an Instapot, I think that would be a great option. I'm just gonna cover these beans with some clean water and simmer them until they're cooked. Should be about 30 minutes to an hour. So our chickpeas are done cooking now. And I'm just gonna drain them, and I'm gonna reserve a little bit of the cooking liquid. P.S. These induction tops are the best thing ever. We use ours all the time, and it boils water twice as fast as you can boil water on the stove. I think we got it on Amazon, but this thing is great, seriously. While our beans were cooking, I sterilized this tray with boiling water and also the spoons that I'm gonna be using. Now I'm gonna take my beans and I'm just gonna add them to my container here. And I'm just gonna let them cool off for a little while because they're still super, super hot. So while they are cooling off, we are gonna get our culture ready. So to culture our beans, I'm actually gonna use some natto, some already prepared natto, but you could also use just natto culture. And I believe Cultures for Health sells that. So this natto is frozen and I'm just gonna cut it up probably into 6 little chunks here. So I'm just gonna use one of these today and I'm gonna save the rest for future batches. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take our square of frozen natto. I'm going to put it into our beans and kind of mound the beans over the natto to kind of thaw it a little bit. Now this natto has the Bacillus subtilis strain of bacteria, and that strain of bacteria is what makes the vitamin K2, which is so good for you. It helps your body use vitamin D well, and it helps your body put calcium where it needs to go in your body. So it takes it out of your blood vessels and out of your cardiovascular system and puts it in your bones where it needs to go. It's really important for preventing cardiovascular disease, and it's also really important for your bone health and also for the functioning of your immune system, which is really important, especially this time of year when it's cold and dark outside and there are lots of illnesses going around. Now I'm just gonna mix up the natto and these chickpeas. All right, so after you've mixed this up really, really well, we're just gonna kind of spread it out into a nice layer here. Now, as you may have noticed, I had one chickpea escape the coop. I'm gonna leave that be. I'm not gonna put it back into my tray. I just want one type of bacteria growing in here. I don't want any extraneous ones. So for that reason, it is really important to make sure your dishes and your spoons are sterile. Now we're ready to cover this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna cover this with some plastic wrap. Many thanks to Natto Dad for this method. If you're interested in natto, you should definitely check out Natto Dad's channel. He has some great videos on natto making. So I've got one layer here. I'm just gonna pull it tight and take a toothpick and just make some holes. I'm gonna release it from the sides and just kind of press it to the top of the chickpeas here. Now I'm gonna take another piece and just put it over the top. Also really tight here. And this one I'm gonna poke holes in as well. All right, now we're ready to incubate. So I'm gonna stick this in my oven and I'll show you my setup here in a minute. But this is gonna incubate at about 100 degrees Fahrenheit for about 18 to 22 hours. So let's stick it in and I'll show you. All right, so we've got our natto in there, and let me just show you our setup here. So this is a 60-watt incandescent bulb in sort of a utility light, and we just have it run on an extension cord and plugged in up on our counter. And then we also have a thermometer so we can tell what temperature it is, and of course our natto. So we are just going to close this up. This should get up to about 100 degrees Fahrenheit, which is where we want it, and it's going to stay there for about 18 to 22 hours. Thank you, Dave, for this setup. All right, so we incubated our chickpeas for about 24 hours, and then I just stuck them in the fridge overnight to cool off, and now we're going to see if it worked. Be sure to like and subscribe down below and check out our classes on Skillshare. All right, so here it is. I'm going to take some of this off of here. This one, we've got a little bit of strands developing there. Let's see what this looks like. I'm just going to scoop out a little bit. Oh, we got some nice strands. And supposedly if you leave this in the fridge longer, the strands will develop even more. Let's try a little soy sauce in here. let's give it a taste. That's pretty good. It's basically just like chickpeas with a hint of sort of the cheesy natto flavor. Not too slimy. I think it's pretty good. So you can keep these guys in the fridge for up to 2 weeks, and then you can freeze them in individual portions, or if you eat it all before then, that's fine too. All right, I think that's it. Give it a try, see what you think, and we'll see you next week.